favorite ways to spend a perfect Saturday is right here on Arthur Avenue. Come hungry and be ready to mangia bene. Now, not only is it where my great-grandmother raised her 5 sons, but it's where cultures of all types come together to experience nostalgic New York. While Little Italy has shrunk over time, Arthur Avenue has remained relatively untouched, with some shops that are over 100 years old. Now, some residents even claim that this is the real Little Italy. But before we explore, we can't help but wonder, who put the Arthur in the Avenue?
There is a dispute about how this road became known as Arthur Avenue. On one camp, you've got this guy who in the 19th century is surveying the street, whose first name is Arthur and his last name is Hoffman. 2 parallel roads here, Arthur and Hoffman. On the other side, you've got the Lorillard-Wolfe family, an incredibly wealthy 19th century family who had a country estate in what is now Belmont section of the Bronx. They were some of the founders of the Metropolitan Museum of Art, ridiculously wealthy Manhattanites. They were great fans of President Chester A. Arthur and asked that the street be named for him. Now, what's really interesting about Chester A. Arthur is that in 1871, he was the New York City Commissioner of Ports. He was notoriously corrupt. He was later named as President Garfield's vice president and ended up in the White House as Garfield dies. He became a champion of reform, signed the Pendleton Act, which is a phenomenal federal reform act. And Mark Twain actually said that it would be virtually impossible to top the prestige of Chester Arthur's administration.
Now, the Pendleton Act was a federal law that stipulated that government jobs should be awarded on the basis of merit, but it also proved to be Arthur's undoing, as it offended certain politicians within the Republican Party. But it wasn't until 40 years later that the Arthur Avenue we know now began to take shape.
Arthur Avenue became an Italian neighborhood really in the 1920s and into the 1930s. It is the 3rd area of settlement for a lot of Italian and Italian immigrants, coming to America through Ellis Island, going to the Lower East Side in Little Italy, stereotypically moving to the East Harlem area. From there, coming to this section of the Bronx.
Now, just after World War I, as Arthur Avenue began to flourish, the Immigration Act of 1924 effectively put an abrupt end to the large flow of Italian immigrants into the country. But the Italian-American community wholeheartedly supported the war effort. In fact, it was estimated that Italian-American soldiers made up more than 10% of the total American forces, a disproportionately high percentage of the total. And Cicciarone Park here in Belmont pays homage to one of those lost soldiers. Today, Belmont's residential neighborhood is a rich ethnic mix of Italians, Hispanics, African Americans, and Albanians. But its Italian roots can be seen on almost every street corner.